is this. All of you who came to hear a little bit about these 6 brave men. And I'm going to introduce you to one of them. Dale Eugene North was a son, brother, husband, father, uncle, and friend to many. He was born on January 2nd, 1948 in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. He was the second of 9 children born to Charles and Hazel North. From the age of 9 or 10, Dale would often tell our parents and others, with great sincerity and acceptance, "I won't live to be 21." He didn't. Living in Warrenton at the time, we moved down here when he was 6. So we were living where the Warrenton Golf Course is now. Dale was a hard-working farm boy. Our brother Chuck said Dale was always good with the animals, especially the cows. At one time, he milked 1 in the morning and 2 at night. I did 2 in the morning and 1 at night. This was in addition to feeding the hogs, chickens, and collecting the eggs. In the summer, Steve, our older brother, and Dale did lots of work with the crops. All seemed to be going well until March of 1964 when the family home burned to the ground. Dale, at the age of 16, was the one who discovered it. He was coming down the steps from the 2nd floor and felt the wall, and it was hot. It turned out to be an electrical fire. He alerted everyone, got all of us out safely. Family then moved to Wright City, where 8 of the 9 of us were enrolled in the Wright City School. Chuck remembers that the basketball coach really tried to recruit Dale for the school team, but Dale was working after school and couldn't give that up. Chuck said he believes the coach even offered Dale a spot if he would make only 1 practice a week. He really had a sweet shot, Chuck said. He also remembered that Dale always seemed to have lots of friends around him, which brought up a memory for me. I remember when I was just getting into the game of basketball, and Dale would try to teach us, Craig, Brian, and me, he was too young at the time, the game. As we were playing, he would throw in some lessons, life lessons that he had learned, such as always, always be kind to others. Now be kind and pass me the ball. If you want to win, be a team player. Now, teammate, pass me the ball. He said, life's not fair. Sometimes you lose. Then he would go on and beat us by 20 or more points. So it was after his graduation from Wright City High as Echo King of the senior class, 1966, that our mother received a telephone call from Trooper Smith, who asked if Dale was her son. Yes, she said. He then informed her that Dale had been in an accident. Immediately, she asked if he'd been hurt. Yes, ma'am, the trooper said. Apparently, he dropped a lit cigarette on the floor and was trying to retrieve it. How the trooper might have known that escaped her. She didn't think of that. He was picking it up, which caused the crash. He died. Devastated, she nearly dropped the phone as Trooper Smith laughed. The trooper was actually Dale. As torturous as the call was, apparently he was trying to prepare her for his death before the age of 21. She wasn't amused. In the summer of 1967, Dale received his draft notice from the government. While there was a lot of talk in the country at the time about going to Canada to avoid the draft, Dale had never done that. He patriotically answered his country's call and left for boot camp at Fort Leonard Wood in September of 1967. However, before leaving, he married his high school sweetheart, Janice Vessels, who is with us today. On May 1st, 1968, Janice gave birth to their son, Jeffrey Dale North. Dale was allowed to spend a couple weeks with his family before being shipped off for more military training. In June of 1968, Dale received his orders to be deployed to Vietnam. It took the Army 3 days to get him there. Dale wrote our parents and Janice during his stint in Vietnam. He assured them that he was safe and away from the fighting as a supply officer. This was not the case. He was assigned as a machine gunner and was involved in hostile fighting on the front line for the next 30 days. On July 10th, 1968, two Army soldiers knocked on our parents' front door. They knew immediately why he was there. Dale had been killed by mortar fragments on July 9th. He was 20 years, 6 months, and 1 week old. Dale was awarded a Purple Heart, Combat Infantryman Badge, Marksmanship Badge, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Army Presidential Unit Citation, Vietnam Gallantry Cross, and Army Good Conduct Medal. Even though the war was very unpopular and soldiers returning were met with disrespect, Dale's funeral and procession was one of the largest to date in Warren County. He was the first soldier from Warren County to lose his life in that undeclared war. He is honored on panel 52 West, line 7 of the Vietnam Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. Two of our brothers, Chuck and Brian, enlisted in the military and served also during the Vietnam War. Of the 58,267 Americans killed in Vietnam conflict, Dale was one of them. Dale and Phil Hunt were also good friends. John 15:13 tells us, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Dale died a brave patriot. Dale died my hero. May we never forget that freedom isn't free. A hero remembered never dies. And as an aside, the poems I'm hearing in Flanders Field and the others reminded me of a poem that Dale had written probably when he was in school hanging out with Tommy Dixon. I once was sad and had the blues just because I had no shoes. Until one day up on the street, I met a man who had no schlitz. And I think Tommy Dixon, who was one of Dale's closest friends, would like to say a few words too.
I met Dale on our first day of junior year in high school in 1964. I lived on Stringtown Road. Dale lived out on Highway M. Me and Steve Lee were already on the bus. And the reason we were riding the bus as juniors, because none of us had a car that would run. We're sitting there and we're just looking at each other. And finally Steve said, "Hey man, you a new kid in school?" Dale goes, "Yeah, I guess." Found out he's a junior, and from then on, we ran hard. All three of us, there was 5 of us. We run together. Me, Dale, Danny Hoskins, Mike Quinn, Steve Lee. Now there's three of us left. But Dale was not only a good friend, he was a great friend. And he only had one kind of friend. And that was a best friend. You never heard him say anything bad about anybody. In that picture of him as a soldier, you seen that smile every time you seen Dale. Always. When the last time I seen Dale was the night I left before I left for Vietnam. I seen him once when we was in Fort Polk, Louisiana. He was on TVY waiting for Janice to give birth. And then him and I went to the EM club and won that war that night. And then I seen him the night before I left. And then about 3 months later, everything was late. I was reading the Stars and Stripes. That's how I found out Dale died. And I wrote Margaret, my wife, still want to know why nobody told me. She goes, we didn't know how. So there's just not a name on the wall. Remember that if you ever go to Washington, D.C., that the Korean War Memorial will drop you to your knees. I have 4 different etchings of Dale's name, and they'll stay with me forever, just like Dale does.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Really do.